Hi seniors, it's Mr. Fenson here. I'd like to talk to you about using evidence with skill in your writing. I've subtitled this presentation Discernment and Form. Up until now, your formation as a writer might have focused more or as much on form as on anything else when it comes to using evidence. But there is a real art form in the use of evidence, especially using evidence in a way that's convincing, but also pleasing and forming a connection with your reader. And that's kind of what I want to talk about. How do I use evidence with discernment in my writing? So this presentation will take two parts. We're going to talk about that discerning work in the first part, and in the second part, there will be a series of slides for you to come back to as you are crafting your writing. So, before we begin all that, though, what does it mean to use evidence? Evidence shows your audience in the best way that your argument reflects the way things are. Each of the elements there is important. Evidence shows your audience. It shows it to them in the best way, and what it shows is that your argument reflects the way things are. And thinking about using evidence in a discerning way requires that we think about each of these things in turn. We're actually going to begin with the last one. Evidence is going to show that your argument reflects the way things are. The good news here is that you have already done most of the work of this. You have already listened in to the conversation about your problem by doing careful research. You have already evaluated that research and evaluated your sources, and you can hopefully connect your audience to some of the best sources on the solution, or at least a solution to your problem. And you have evaluated and carefully crafted your argument so that you should already by this point be sitting on a good argument that reflects the way things are and offers a meaningful response to help bring them to the way that they could be. But the devil is in the details. The finishing touches make all the difference, and now it's time to think about how your research can be put on display in order to show your audience that your claim is true, and to do so in the best way by crafting how your argument will convince your audience. So to take the first one, my evidence is going to show my work to my audience. Why would I want to show my work? Well, firstly, you worked hard to find these sources, so use them. Using evidence in your writing strengthens your argument. It strengthens any argument. If you can show your audience that this isn't just me talking, but in fact, there's research on the subject, and this is what the researchers suggest. Or even to say, there are authorities in this area, and the authorities who have worked hard to study the problem have these things to say about the cause of the problem, about the nature of the problem, and therefore about the solutions to that problem. It strengthens any argument to be able to bring evidence to bear. And not only for your argument itself, but also for the relationship that you're building with your audience. It instills trust in your audience when you have rich evidence in every paragraph, because what you're showing to your audience is that you have put the work in. You deserve to be trusted as somebody who speaks on this subject because you've put the work in, and you can not only talk meaningfully and thoughtfully, but also truly, and in reflecting the way things are. Okay, so it instills that trust so that when you get to the point, when you get to the solution that you're offering, when you get to the point where you say, okay, you have the information now, you've heard from the sources, therefore come and be a part of this solution, you've built up that relationship with your audience. Also, as an academic matter, good research is transparent. It's transparent to where the information comes from, and it's also transparent about its process. This is where my information came from, and this is how I'm putting it together for you. Good research is transparent in a way to show intellectual honesty and intellectual humility. It shows intellectual honesty because you're not presenting anyone else's work as though it were your own. But it also shows intellectual humility because you are presenting someone else's work. It communicates when you cite your sources. That communicates to your audience, I'm not the source of this information, but I think it's good information, and we should think about it when we think about this problem. It communicates, I'm not the source of this suggested solution. I didn't come up with this idea, but I think it's a good idea. And I think we should consider it when we think about solutions to this problem. So showing intellectual honesty and intellectual humility is important work when it comes to good research. And showing transparency in your research invites the audience to further exploration of the problem because they have your sources right there. And if your essay has brought them on board and you've convinced them that the problem is important and that this is a good possible solution, they can do their own research. They can follow up with your sources, and they can also become a stronger advocate for the solution that you have suggested. So it invites your audience to further exploration of the topic. So these are some reasons why you would show your work. How would you show your work? You're going to want to show your work using the correct format. Okay, and you should know that as you move on from AACS, the correct format of your work may be decided by the discipline of study that you go into if you go into college or university, or it might even be decided by your employer. If you end up in an office somewhere, likely they'll have some kind of format that they want the work to be done in. But for now, at least in your senior year, we're going to continue using good old-fashioned MLA, which you'll need to use following the guide posted to the Purdue Online Writing Lab. And also, as you pursue your work in MLA format, I wanted to point out these are some of the most common issues that we run into in MLA formatting in student writing. Okay, and here's how you could avoid those problems. So you can pause this video and take a moment just to take in the information that's here. Okay, and not only on this slide, but especially as we move forward, I'm not going to spend a lot of time walking through all of the slides that remain in this presentation, but I will frame it for you. Okay, so the rest of this presentation is about how do I use evidence in the best way. And as you move through each slide, just note that you are going to want to come back to all of the things that are here. There's an element of style to how we use evidence. Okay, so as you are using this, right, both of these are chicken sandwiches, but the pictures of the chicken sandwich accomplish very different things. In the same way, as you're looking at all of these pieces of evidence, the question is not what is the right way to take a picture of a chicken sandwich, but what am I trying to do with this picture? Also, in using evidence, the question is not what is the right way to use evidence? Do I quote? Do I not quote? What's the perfect thing to do here? The question is, what am I trying to do in this paragraph? What's my goal? Okay, it's kind of like asking, is it better to have an assist in a basketball game, or is it better to shoot the three-pointer? Well, okay, the three-pointer can get you more points, but maybe 7 times out of 10, if you can get the assist, that's just as good, right? It matters more what context you're in than which one is better, if that makes sense. So depending on your situation, what's the best way to do this? Okay, so look, I wanted to give you some examples. This is what direct quote looks like. This is what paraphrase and cite looks like. You've got a couple of examples there. Here are some tips, reasons why you might want to paraphrase evidence, reasons why you might want to directly quote your evidence, and the potential pros and cons of each one. You could come back to this slide to consult as you are crafting your writing. You'll need to think about, do I want a short quote or a long quote here? A long quote is going to require more investment from your reader, and you should save it for the most important parts of your argument. But that doesn't mean you need to discount or think that the other forms of quotation are weaker. Okay, so use discernment in the length of the quote you're putting in front of your reader. This is an example of what a long quotation can look like and some tips about how to use it. And lastly, to double check your work, here is a link to the appropriate page. Some key takeaways for how to use evidence in the best way. I'm not going to read all of these, but I want you to just note that before I turn my work in, these are some things that I want to make sure that I have accomplished or that I have thought seriously about in order to really sharpen my work and put my best foot forward. Following these steps and using the tools that are here in this presentation, I think hopefully you will be able to show your audience in the best way that your argument reflects the way things are. Thank you very much.